Put the red light on and diagnose the flaws. We want to know why your game has a hitch. Stop falling for the fluff and learn you're about you swing. Today we lay down Barney Purple and make sure it's good as my man Urkel. If you lived through the 80s, then you know the golf swing is a mystery to unfold. And today we are looking at you too. But today is the day we have your truth. Golf swing, learning about my golf swing. Barney Purple, red light, stop shanking them out of bounds. Stop killing squirrels with your top shots. Find a way to make your blade secure. Watch a Lion Golf be your cure. Lion Golf Academy, Lion Golf Academy. Today's the day we learn all your mistakes and figure out why you right hook into the art of Mr. Crook. And stop topping balls into the creek and stop slicing them out of here. Today we are looking at you too. For today is the day we have your truth. Golf swing.
Laying down tracks where the lion hearts gather. Golf Academy lessons under the radar splatter. Diagnosing swings under red lights, that's the show. Cause and effects teaching so you know. Golf swings diagnosed in Barney Purple haze. Step into the lion's den, ain't no phase. Better your game with a funky fresh stance. Swinging with heart in a wild golf dance. Tiger strikes the fairway, rain in the breeze. Barney Purple on my gear, swinging with ease. From bunkers to the green, letting it flow. Red light analysis, we running the show. Got the golf dock in the house, no messing around. Every club in the bag makes a distinct sound. Barney's Purple magic, fixing your aim. Next hole's yours, elevate the game. Thanks to grip on the driver, confidence stack, Lion Golf Academy. Never looking back, swing diagnosis with precision and flair. Barney watching over, nothing compare. Golf swings diagnosed in
Lion Golf Academy. Good evening. Happy Sunday, everybody that's going to tune in today or watch us later on in a video. We've got some videos today to go over. We've got a little before and after that we're going to look at first off. And then we got a couple of students that need some assistance, both of current students at our academy, which is going to be kind of interesting to watch and kind of show you some cause and effects. So if you're new here, this is what we do every Sunday. We evaluate golf swing cause and effects, and not everybody's swing is the same. So you should not treat it the same, and you should really, ideally, if you can afford it, work with somebody. And it doesn't have to be every week. It can just be once in a while, just to get somebody to get you on track. I'm not too sure of the history behind this gentleman that sent me his swing, and I got his permission actually to use the swing because I thought it'd be a good before and after to see. And I'm not sure if he worked with anybody, but just to look at some similarities between the two motions. Obviously, one is before, one is after, and we're going to figure out which one is which. I know the answer to which one is which, but I want you to try and figure this out as we move forward, and then we will reveal which one is the before and after. So right off the bat, we can see that the tempos, a year has gone in between these two videos, but you'll notice that the tempo is about the same. And that's the really cool thing about the golf swing, is it's so DNA'd in you that tempos don't really change. It's very hard to have somebody built a tempo that is slow and then all of a sudden they get very fast. That's an unusual thing that happens. So that's the good thing. The bad thing about that is with every tempo comes sequencing. So people with fast tempos versus slow tempos do have different sequencings. And it also comes down to range of motion, flexibility, and you know the drill. Pure talent definitely helps too. So we're going to pause this and we're going to get some lines going on here. And we're going to watch at any point in time. You do have some questions. I'll try and do a better job this time of peering over to the comments, because last stream I would went on a tangent and there must have been 50 comments and I just didn't answer any of them. So let's get Barney Purple involved, and we'll put Barney Purple right through the spine on both of these. Now I know that the one on the left side is a little bit taller. Whoever took that video took it a little bit higher, so we'll have to deal with that. But let's just take a look at the main things, which is the plane lines, and then also the secondary plane line. And we'll look at some cause and effect, and we'll figure out which one is which before and after. And then I'll offer my suggestion on what to work on next if this was my student. And hopefully he will catch this either live or in a replay. I'll send him the link to make sure. So let's do a quick centeredness check. So from the arches of the heels straight up to the sky, and we can see it's slightly ahead. I gave it away, the old one. So now we know, okay, the old one's on the right, new one's on the left. I'm not very good at keeping secrets. The one on the left side, we can see that it's a little bit more centered than the the one on the right side. The arches of the heels, ideally you want it to be down the line. That way, both of those green lines can go right in between where the spine angle and also the lower plane line meet. And that will be a good centeredness. So we can see that he probably feels centered just because one foot is ahead, one foot's behind. But again, this could be camera issues. But I do notice that this is a very toe-based setup. Now, with toe-based setups, I've noticed that the more toe-based you are, the higher your plane becomes naturally. I've just noticed that. Now, it's not always the case, but I have noticed that. So keep that in mind if you are working on your motion. Let's take a look at a couple of things. Let's do one more line here. We're going to confuse this with more lines, but let's do this in red and, not red, blue. And we're going to try and get as close to 90 degrees. I got to look a little bit crooked here because that red line's throwing me off. So there is 90 degrees. And here is 90 degrees. And why is that important? Well, if you follow us, you understand that the shoulders need to tilt perpendicular to the spine. So that's basically 90 degrees of the spine. And that's very important to see, do you actually make a true turn around your spine, or do you suffer and get some spine tilt loss? So if you take that club back, we can see the old one, the one on the right side. Actually, I like the old takeaway better, just because look at right over here. We can see that the hands are pretty close to that lower plane line. The spine angle is matching the club face line, which is pretty nice. The one on the left side, obviously, it's hard to see where that club face is just because it's a little blurry. Here we can capture some of it, so it's slightly open. That's okay. The club does veer off on below the plane line, but again, there could be a club face, a camera issue, which could be causing this. The good news is the hands are on that lower plane line. We do see an increase of shoulder tilt, and this is why we know that this is a toe-heavy setup, specifically with the one on the right. So what I'm going to do is draw an orange line right on that face, right by his forward of his face. Watch how he dips right there. So we know that this is a toe-based setup, maybe a little bit too much weight in the toes. Now, when you dip this close, you're not only dipping your head, you're also lowering your left shoulder, and you are crashing into the golf ball. So now our spine angle has moved slightly into the golf ball. We've lost some real estate, so we might have to compensate for that. The newer motion on the left side, we can see that there is not as much, so that's really good. It's much better, much more stable. I think that you can achieve even more stability if you get these feet more underneath your hips, so they match that plane line. And remember, this plane line is really determined by your arm length. So the longer your arm length is, naturally, it's going to lower or higher that plane line. So you can teach a person that has arms like an alligator, their plane is going to be a little bit different than if you teach somebody that has arms like a gorilla. And then also you look at the hips and and down, how long are their legs in relationship to those. So a lot of things can go at play here. But we're going to take a look at the top of the swing, and we see how the hands are nice in front of the chest. So the newer motion on the left side does a better job of keeping the hands in front of the chest. We do see that tilting forward. We don't see a lot of tilting loss. So here's where that blue is on both of these. So that's pretty good that he's able to tilt his shoulders around. I would ideally, even on this new motion on the left side, if you can stop right there, you don't need all this extra, because this is not, now you've disconnected from your power source, and now you have to reconnect in your downswing. However, you do a pretty good job of getting back to your arm top position being in line with your arches of your heel. Now that's key. If you wanted to come more flatter, you would get them even further back out in this area here, but it's not necessary specifically with a iron. So check your driver, make sure your driver is at least getting to the left side, our view of that arches of the heels straight up to the sky. That'll help you drop in the slot a little bit better. We can see slight crossing the line in the old motion. New motion is pretty good, so definite improvement with the arm position. So we see his arm does get to that left, the secondary playing out pretty well. The old one gets a little bit in between. So we can see that this one on the left side can probably produce more consistent results just from this top position. We see less moving forward and back on the toes. We see the same amount of turn. We haven't sacrificed our what am I looking for? Our sequencing. So things are looking pretty good. As we come on down through, we can see the hand drop is about the same, except the one on the left side is going to come from a slightly taller angle because he reached that secondary plane line. So the one on the right side, you probably got a little bit shallow sometimes, maybe hit some heavy shots. And I think as you get down into impact, you can see you probably hit the ground slightly before you made contact on the right side. But this could also be the lack of room. So the good thing, night and day, is your impact position. So we can see how the one on the left side, you are still standing on your left brace line, that little yellow line. You can see your footwork is a lot more quieter. Look at that left foot versus the old left foot. Look at the right foot versus the old right foot. As we strike through the golf ball, we can definitely see the weighting is pushing more towards your back left heel. We can see the toes grounding inside the ground, pushing the weight to the left side. Here, the toes grounding in, but it's not necessarily pushing because we don't see the straightening of the right leg. We see this right leg has this little brace to it because there's no real drive. You're just basically turning and trying to create some room because you've crashed into the golf ball. The one on the left side, you have not crashed. You're definitely elongating this right side, meaning you're pushing all that weight through over to your left shoulder, and you can finish a little bit higher too. So we see the exit path of your hands is on that secondary plane line where the one on the right side is in between. But you have to give it credit though, because you did lose a lot of real estate here. So let's just clean up all these lines before I go crazy with these lines. And let's back up to check the tilting amount and how much, because I do see some cause for concern with your current motion, and it's more for your lower right part of your back. So let's get some checking here. And we're going to look at 35 degrees. The old one, you were at 33. As we go down into impact, we go one frame past impact here. And let's look at the new one. So new one, you're at 70. So 35 degrees increase. And let's get this one right here. It's about as good as we can get it. And here, so you can definitely see a little bit of too much of the increase of shoulder tilt for your new motion. You have 35 degrees versus the old one, you're at 28. So 7 degrees doesn't sound like much, but it can create some issues specifically with this elongating of the right side as you're pushing off, which is great. I love seeing that. When you push off to that left side and straighten up your right side, that means you're pushing the power up through your left shoulder as you drive and turn through. However, it is going to put some stress right here in that lower part of your back. Now, just remember the way the back works. And you can see, before I explain this, but I'll draw it here. Let's get some Barney purple here. So we can see this angle here versus the older angle. It's less over. So a lot of pressure on that lower right vertebrae. I see a lot of junior golfers out there now being taught to drive and hang back and tilt, and they're starting to blow out that lower region of their back, and that's not a good sign. So you don't want to get too carried away with this. Just remember the way the back works. The thoracic region is responsible for the rotation. The lumbar is responsible for the support up and down. Now, the amount of rotation, it's been a while since I can remember these numbers. I'm trying my best to remember them. The amount of rotation that the thoracic does is about 60 degrees total rotation. The lumbar is about 30 degrees. So if you are now trying to hold your upper body, this is turning through, but now all of a sudden you turn past that 15 degrees that your lower body can turn, you're going to put some stress on it, and eventually it's just going to not be able to hold that stress. So just a little word of wisdom. I've seen it occur, and it's not a good injury. It happened to me. As a result, I have to go back to very tall up and down motion. I cannot get this exaggerated position. But overall, I don't know if you work with somebody, if you did this on your own, but either way, I think I love these changes. You did a great job. Just be careful of those tilting. That increase of 7 degrees could create some issues. But other than that, I think this is wonderful. Let me know in the comments if you are here or if you're going to watch this later. Did you work with somebody? If you didn't work with somebody, how did you get in these positions? I would imagine that you had to do a lot of position drills, which is dry swings where you just have Let's say I'm having somebody work in the rotation, they would have the golf ball or a big ball in front of them as they're turning. And then we do that 50, 100 times. And then I put a golf club in their hand and try and transfer that feel over. So let me know if it's something like that, or if you just hard work, hundreds and thousands of golf balls. That could be another way too. So hope that helps you. Good job. Let me know in the updates and keep us informed too. So next one we've got going. Let's clear up all these lines here. And this one, I'm going to do one screen at a time, just to give you some ideas of why we need face on down the line, because it's very important. And whenever I get videos sent to me, they're always giving me this down the line, and it's great. I mean, you can tell stuff from down the line. However, we need that face on, and we'll talk about why we need that face on, because it is very, very important for us to see where that ball position is in your setup and how your body is trying to find that center of the ball position based on your setup. And that will definitely affect some plane works. So if we're watching this swing over and over again, we can see that couple things. This is in slow motion, so let's just speed this up here. And let me do it manually. Okay, so we can see that this is a little steeper, a little posture loss, but this is what we're fighting, right? We're fighting this over the top, kind of slashing motion. You can still strike the ball pretty well, but there's definitely loss of distance. We're not getting our whole body to utilize itself correctly. We can see maybe a tightness of the body, so maybe not as flexible as we would like. So maybe we need to do some flexibility drills to get that rotation up, specifically in the backswing. But you can see that everything looks very tight here, and then we fire our hands too. So we have to look at, okay, why do we fire our hands? So let's look at the setup from this down the line, because this is very important. Let's pause it right there. And we're going to draw, you guessed it, Barney purple, and we can see that huge. Let's make these lines a little bigger. So you can see a huge downward trend of that spine angle tilt as you start the golf swing. Now, I'm not sure what club this is, but there really shouldn't be that much, because if you take a look here, you are closer than 90 degrees with your spine. So this might be a little bit too much bend, and you have to come out of your posture, because unless you're built like Gumby, you're not going to remain in your posture while you get that tilt and turn corrected. So let's look at the spine angle loss. And then also, let's check where this secondary plane line is. It's going to be very hard to maintain that. So you'll see what happens with your motion. As we start, what else are we going to do? Oh, yeah, let's check the centeredness. So arch of the heel up. So not bad. You can see it's centered. So that's decent. Now we can change the centering to get you to be a little bit taller, maybe move you slightly closer, a few inches closer, get you to stand more upright, relax your arms so they're at least in a neutral position. We do have a nice little space to make our motions through, so we have plenty of real estate. However, we can start to see the lack of mobility can make it hard for you to turn and hold your posture. So as we take that club back, we can see it does a really good job of getting those hands right in that lower plane line. Club face is matching that spine. So this is really, really good. However, to maintain that shoulder tilt, that shoulder bend, his shoulder must tilt 90 degrees. So I don't know very many people that can get their shoulder to tilt that much in the top of their swing and hold their posture. It's very hard to do, specifically as you get a little bit older. You're just not flexible enough. So what happens to him? He has to get these hands up to that secondary plane line, but he does this by starting to stand up and out of his posture. So we see him standing up and out to get a little bit more comfortable. So this is where he should have been setting up from the get-go. We don't need all this compensatory motions, because now we take a look at the new spine angle, which is going to be in blue. We can see that he is perpendicular to his new spine angle. So this feels more comfortable for him. He's able to get there pretty easily, but he does it by raising up and out of his posture. We can see by doing that, he also stands closer. He probably feels a little bit more centered, because when you stand up and out, you have to get closer to get yourself more centered and more upright. So I would initially work with him on getting more upright and a setup to promote this compensatory motion so it doesn't occur. Because now there's a compensatory motion, but that affected his weight distribution, that affected his turn, that affected his sequencing. So we have a couple things in play that should not be in play. So let's take a look now. We're going to start this downswing, and let's see how much. Let's go to the top. Okay, yeah, also because of that, because he stood up and he raised his hands up, we can see that his hands don't quite get to that centeredness. Here we go again. Computer woes. There you go. Let's go right there. So his hands don't quite get to that center line. Bare minimum with the irons, you want to get right over that center line. It's going to help you come from the inside more because he has a tough time coming from the inside. If this was my student, we get him stand a little bit taller and get his hands to feel like they're slightly lower. So if we can get his hands a little bit lower, he'll be this much more behind that downward motion, so he can come from the inside and get his hands down that slot a little bit quicker. But again, I don't know his range of motion, so it could be an issue for him. But let's take a look as we come on down. We're going to draw our patented, you guessed it, patented triangle. Let's see if he's able to pull that club down. And right away, we see it go right of that triangle. Anytime it's going to go right of this triangle, you're dead. You're going to be coming very steep. And we can see right here, those hands should maybe be there. So we can see we're having some issues. Once you get to the top and you come on through, we can see now as we strike the golf ball, look at how much his posture has changed. So let's get rid of the patented triangle. Let's draw a new spine angle. And we can see his shoulders are trying to tilt under that. But we've also lost. I mean, look at all this real estate that we've lost. So this is the weight distribution. Now the weight's going towards the toes too much, right? So now we're stuck on our toes. We're not able to get any drive. We're just turning. We're trying to fire our hands to hit that golf ball. And we come on through and we can see that we do get the right tilting, but it's relative to this new setup that he found from that compensatory motion. But it's not the same in relation to his original. He's actually hasn't tilted at all compared to his original, which is the Barney Purple. So you can see this compensatory motion. He tries to get the motion down correctly, but it's based on the compensatory motion and not his setup. So he has basically two swings that he's working with. And this is what's causing some issues. But it's not necessarily only down the line, because I want you to take a look at this face on. And face on is what really can tell the tale in a golf swing. And this is all the setup. Now, I want you to keep in mind that setup in golf is everything. If you set up incorrectly based on your body schematics, it's going to be very hard for you to hit the golf ball consistently. You have to know your limitations. You have to know your cause and effect. You have to know what's happening in your golf swing to adjust accordingly. And right now we have a setup that is promoting a lunge left. And when you lunge left, you can't hang back, drop your shoulder enough, and get your hands to drop in the slot, because you're so busy getting your weight lunging left. The first half of your swing is just getting your chest in front of the ball. And how we're going to figure this out is let's do this. Let's get some Barney Purples up here. Let's do our shoulder tilt. We got a perfect little zipper here because it actually falls right in line with that shoulder tilt. So we can see this in relation to his hands is pretty good. However, if you take a look at this premature forepress that we've given ourselves, this is probably not the best thing, because what we're doing is we're making two circles. Right? So now we're going to look at one circle here. So you've got a circle that the golf ball is going to be swung around, right? That's where it's striking down, and that's, where that forepress. And now you've also got a circle that the body is striking down. And let's see if we can do it like this. No, that doesn't make sense. Let's do it up here. Okay, so you get two circles. You've got one on your shoulders and one in relation to that forward press. Now you can see that this red line that's pointing down and the purple line that's pointing up, they should be sitting a little bit closer to each other. Maybe perpendicular, that's okay. Maybe a slight forward down, which is that red, but not this extreme, because now what are we going to have to do to get striking that golf ball? We're going to have to get the center of our chest to be ahead of that golf ball to strike down on the golf ball correctly, because if we just stay here and strike, we're going to hit the ground about here based on the setup. So we're going to have to do something to compensate for that. So let's pull out these little lines there, or the circles, and let's redraw in green. So if you just look at where the center of the chest straight down to the golf ball, you should meet that here. Okay, so we're going to look at that and say, hey, that looks pretty good. I mean, it's relatively close. The center of the chest goes right through the hands, slightly ahead of the golf ball. Looks pretty good. The problem is we know now, based on this setup, that his chest has to wind up right about here, because that is ahead of where his hands are going to press the golf ball. And let's take a look. We're going to leave that second line up there. And let's see, does the center of his chest get over to that second line? We go here and watch that. Boom, 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 boom. Look at that. Center of the chest got right where that line is. So he is so busy trying to move back left, this motion here, There's no time to turn. You're not sitting back slightly and rotating while you can drop the hands in the slots. And remember, we also have a issue with his setup. So now we have a position where he's starting to bend forward. As he takes that club back, he has to ride himself back up. And now he has to go back left to get his hands in front. So we have one motion up, one motion left to make this golf swing work. And I'm sure he can make it work. And I'm sure he hits the ball fine. But the problem is when he misses the ball, that's some issues. I'm sure we can see some rope hooks. I'm sure we can see some blocks. I'm sure we can see a lot of things occurring where it can drive you a little bit nuts. So this is why you have to be set up correctly. So if this was my students, I'm going to get with his coach and recommend this couple of changes here. From the face on, we're definitely going to X this setup. I mean, you're looking for a setup specifically with the average golfers where you just want, I don't mind seeing the hands there. That's okay because they're nice and in center with the chest. But the ball position should be right there. So now you've aligned both of your golf ball centeredness and also your tilting centeredness to each other. So now those two circles are going to be rotating around the same axis. You don't have two axes that you have to reconnect somehow, and that's going to cause some issues. So that looks pretty good from the down the line. My first change would definitely to get to stand a little bit taller. So let's get this here, and we're going to try and keep that same right here. We're going to try and keep this same here, and we're going to stand a little bit taller. So what would you need to stand taller? Stand a little bit closer. So back of his hip might be about here. His front of his hip might be about here. His legs are going to be in about the same position. You like my little tracing job? Look at that. Pretty good. And then his upper body can be more like this. And his head's going to be up over here. And now if we take a look, at least he pretty winds up there, right? So let's take a look as we get to the top of the swing here. Good. So at least there we can start to get to where he wants to go naturally, and then just work around turning and tilting correctly. And along with that new ball position, we should start to see some at least better ball strikes. Now, keep in mind, we might see a new miss, and that's always good. If I'm working with the students, I don't want them to have the same miss. If they come into missing rights all day long, we're going to figure out why you're missing a right, and let's get you to hit left for a couple of times and get used to that. Figure out why are we hitting it left so we can try and hit that more often so you can get used to it, and then we find that middle. But we need to get him in a completely different position. So I hope that helps you. I will forward this to Coach Joe for you. And I don't know if he's watching now or not, but that will definitely help you out. So we've got one more here. Where is it? Nope. Somewhere here. Okay. So 15-year-old junior golfer. Let's take a look at what we see here. And we're going to watch this nice and slow motion. Let's see what my students can figure out without me saying anything. You see that there? Okay, notice where the point of contact is. Behind the golf ball. Ball goes rifling off left. Very steep for a fairway wood. Not a lot of room to work with. And the reason we don't have a lot of room to work with is because what did you guys see there? If we back it up to here, what do you see there with the setup? Look how high that plane is. And we start to make adjustments for that. As we take that club back, we start to sit more down. We get a lot of tilting, and we come in very steep, and we try and untilt it and stand up, and it's unsuccessful. So there's a couple things that you would definitely need to change right away. And this is going to be your setup. So setup, let's take a look at where you are setting up and talk about why this might work and why it might not. So we're going to take a look at your plane lines. You can see how high that plane is. I mean, that secondary plane, you don't have much room to work with. And we're going to look at where your centeredness is in relation to that plane. So let's draw this in Barney purple, arch of the heel straight to the sky. So we can see that even the centeredness is still way too forward. And that's the one issue with doing one plane swings is the higher you get this, now it's going to take your plane so high you might fall towards your toes as you swing. I don't think you're doing the one plane on purpose. I just think it's just a result of the way you set up. Now, this is a junior golfer, so we're not quite sure how long she's had those clubs, if she's had to set up like this because those clubs have been too long for her. So without knowing that history, take this with a grain of salt if you're watching this at any point in time, either now or afterwards. You really have to look at your setup and why things are occurring. So if we go to the top of your swing, and let's do in Barney Purple, let's do a 90 degrees from that spine angle line. And again, that's eyeballing it. It's not going to be perfect. But let's take a look as we get that club back. All right, so see how you do add tilt and you fall towards your toes. So there's an issue with your weighting. We see the weighting is a little bit front loaded, so that might cause you, not help, but it might cause you to tip towards your toes and get your tilting up. Now, when you tip towards your toes and get your tilting down, you can see your new tilting. That's where it should have been, where the Barney Purple is. Your new tilting is definitely facing towards the ground. You get to that secondary plane line a little bit higher, so that's where you should have been. Now you're a little bit higher, that secondary plane line, and the club face is definitely closed. So you're steep, you've got a closed club face, and now what's the one way to hit the golf ball? Is you have to find a way to create the room and not be so steep, because if you come straight down into impact, you're going to hit the ground way before the golf ball. You're going to hurt yourself. Your body knows this, so it's going to figure out a way to try and avoid this. So now we stand back up. So now you can see your new spine angle is returning to where it was. However, look how much closer you are to the golf ball. So you've lost so much real estate here. So I think your setup is definitely too toe based, and that tilting is to counteract the toe, or it's the cause of the toe base because more weight's on the toe. And you don't need tilt, you need turn. Turn is going to be your friend, specifically if this is how you swing all your clubs, even the irons. So for you, we need the arches of the heels straight up to the sky to support this hip. Okay, so if you take a look, we're going to draw that X. That's going to be where it needs to support. So you have to figure out a way to get that hip to be in between, to be right on top of where the arches are, because that impact, let's see if you find it. Let's go here. Let's redraw that line because the camera skipped. So there. So let's see if you do find it as you strike the ball. Yeah. So you can see how your right hip joint is trying to find that centeredness. So right here, you can see there's the arches and there's the right hip joint. So you really have to be understanding that to remain centered, your hips are always going to find the center of your feet regardless of where you are. Now, you can have an extreme position where you stay in that extreme position, but you'll probably lose your balance and fall over on the downswing. And you can definitely see as you finish the swing, look how you're holding yourself from falling left. You can see you're very toe-based. You get to your left heel, fine, but there, now it's like all the weight shifts to the toes because you're finishing so far over to your right side that you do have an issue maintaining your balance. So you can always tell the way somebody sets up, how they're probably going to finish, but you can always see, for mom and dad watching this, where your centeredness is specifically after the swing. You should be able to finish in a nice centered position. And if you're not able to finish in a nice centered position, something is awry. So let's look at how much shoulder tilt you generate from the top of your swing, because I think that's going to be very important too. So we go to the top of your swing here, and okay. It's going to be two numbers to look at. So let's look at this number first. This is basically where you should be based on your setup, right? You're at 22 degrees. Now let's take a look at your top position because of that little hit you got there. So now you are at, look at that, 40 degrees. So you gained 20 degrees, give or take, in that short little frame. Now, to strike the golf ball, for you to know at home, it's about 25, 35 in that range degrees of increase. So if you tilt correctly at 41 degrees, you're going to be 75 degrees past impact with your right shoulder tilting down to the ground. There's no way, specifically with a wood, you're going to have some issues. So you can see your body knows that. And as you strike the golf ball, we're going to look at your tilting now. It's about the same as it was at the top. So you're not getting your right shoulder to tilt down correctly. All it's doing is rotating around your steady spine, because your spine is moving up and down, right? So we don't increase the tilt in relation to the spine only until we get about midway down in the downswing, but only if your weighting's correct, only if you have the room to do this in. and only if your ball position is correct to your center of your chest. So this is a huge red flag for me, is you're not able to utilize your tilting correctly, and you're trying to use athleticism to strike the golf ball, which clearly you can see you have a lot of athleticism. If we pause this right here, there's a lot of good things going on here. We can see in this position your weight's going to your left heel. Let's get rid of that here. You can see in this position your weight's going to your left heel. You're still maintaining your posture here. You can see your shoulders have now returned back to be vertical. It's going to be perpendicular to that spine angle. Your hands are in front of your chest, which is great. So they're keeping up with the center of you. You can see the club is right in front of your chest. So there's a lot of good things happening here. And where you're finishing now, this is basically where you should try and start your swing. So if we rebuild your setup like this, so let's do this in green. So this is your spine angle. This is your back brace line. And let's go back to where you are there. Boom. So you can see that you are trying to get in the right position. It's almost there. You need to, right now, your spine angle is a little bit taller. So you're up. And your back brace line, you can see there's a lot of like knee bend going on here, which will start to mess with your weighting. So yeah, I would definitely get a little bit taller. So get these legs to be a little bit straighter, so you don't have not a lot of knee flexion. So that could be where your center of your hips are. You get that spine angle to be about there. Your arms can now just drop naturally. So they're not out, they drop slightly naturally, maybe a little bit forward with the hands. You don't want to reach out too much. And then from here, your plane now can sit a little bit flatter. And when it sits a little bit flatter, what is that going to do for everything? It's going to make things a lot easier, because this will be your plane, and then your secondary plane will be up here. Now look at all the room you have to work with. It's so much more room to get things done. And your back brace line will be about here. And now we can get we can stay in our posture, because if you look at where your shoulders need to be at the top of your swing, they can be right about here. Now let's see where they get to. They get very tilty and over. So first things first, you've got to get a much better setup. Get your feet more under your hips, straighten out the legs. Don't get so hunched over right here. Don't raise your arms up. Just let them hang. Get some spacing. Look at the lower plane line, upper plane line. You need a lot of area to work with. And once you are there, now you focus on turning. Don't lift. Don't tilt. Just turn. Have mom or dad stay behind you with a ball, a beach ball, something. You hand that beach ball to your mom and dad by just turning. No tilting down, because if you tilt, your hands are going to go way out on the top and you're going to miss mom and dad. So mom and dad stay right behind, get them in a better posture. Just go ahead and turn your body, pass that beach ball back and forth. Just rotate, rotate, rotate. And then you have to take your ball position, because if you take a look at this position here, we are going to see where that ball position is in relation to you. That's way too far in the back foot. So I would imagine you might have some forward pressing going on here, but this ball position should never be right of center at the bare minimum, even with irons. With the hybrids, with fairway woods like you have here, is this on a tee? Let's see, is this on a tee? I don't think it's on a tee. But even on the deck, I mean, the deck should be just inside that left heel, just to help you so you can be flat. You know, you want to approach this by dropping the hands and sweeping it off the ground. You can't sweep when you're very steep. You're going to come straight to the ground. So I would imagine this is a very frustrating part. It might stem throughout the whole bag, but all the setup, just look for the feet to support the hips. Don't get so hunched, and don't increase your tilt. And remember why you're increasing your tilt. It's most likely because your hands are way up in front, up high, and you have to get them to that secondary plane line a little bit more efficiently. And also your weighting could be a little bit skewed. So I hope that helps you. We're going to keep this playing in the background. And some things that I got coming up, we are trying to get, I've got a phone application, if anybody's interested, about practicing correctly. I need some volunteers to go through this to help us out, because we're looking now to license it. So if there's any volunteers watching this that want to jump in on that, let me know. We're getting about 300 subscribers away from our 4,000 subscriber count, and we're going to do something special for the 4,000. If anybody's in the Southern California area, let me know, because I want to maybe get a couple foursomes out and go play some golf and have some fun. So we got those two things lined up. So if you do know somebody that likes this stuff, hit that like, share, subscribe, send them our way. If you want to appear on a future episode, send me a face on and a down the line. Now, face on is like this. Down the line is like this. So that's your down the line, that's your face on. Face on is very important. Down the line is very important. So we need both of these for me to correctly help you. But I hope all that stuff helps. You guys have a great rest of your week. I'm going to finish up my dinner and get ready to just relax, watch some TV, do something, but not golf. Too much golf. All right, everybody. Have a good night. I will see you next week. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. If this helps you, let me know. If not, let me know too. I like the discussion. All right, guys. Fairways and greens.